Emily and Lily's private flight promised a weekend of adventure, but mid-air, the engine erupted in flames. Panic seized them as the small plane plummeted toward the dense, unforgiving jungle. A massive explosion shook the aircraft, and then silence. When Emily awoke, smoke choked the air, and she saw Lily, badly injured, lying amidst the wreckage. Alone, frightened, and stranded in an endless forest, they faced a brutal choice: succumb to the jungle's merciless grasp or fight for survival. Every shadow could hide danger, every step could be their last. Their journey had begun, and only the strong would survive. Emily and Lily laughed, sipping their drinks as the small private plane soared above the clouds. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Their excitement for a weekend in the wilderness was palpable. Suddenly, a jolt shook the plane. Smoke poured from the engine, acrid and thick. The pilots struggled, pulling every lever, but the aircraft trembled violently, descending at a terrifying speed. Panic gripped Emily's heart, her eyes wide as the roar of the failing engine filled her ears. Outside, the dense jungle rushed toward them. The world blurred in flames and smoke. Then a massive explosion. Metal twisted, fire erupted, and everything went black. When Emily's eyes opened, the sky was replaced with smoke-streaked branches and the scorched forest floor. Pain radiated through her body as she crawled. Through the haze, she saw Lily lying motionless, her face streaked with blood and dirt. Panic surged. Emily dragged Lily away from burning debris, each movement agonizing but necessary. "Lily, stay with me," she shouted, heart pounding. Slowly, she shook Lily awake, whispering encouragement. Lily's eyelids fluttered, a faint groan escaping her lips. Relief mixed with fear. Survival had just begun. Emily scanned the surroundings. Twisted trees, scorched earth, and a forest alive with eerie silence. "We have to move," Emily muttered, gripping Lily's hand. Together, they rose, unsteady but determined, stepping into the unknown depths of the jungle. Every rustle and shadow seemed threatening, yet they pressed on, unaware of what dangers lay ahead. The jungle around them seemed endless, a labyrinth of dense foliage and towering trees. Emily steadied herself, her muscles aching from dragging Lily through charred debris. Every step was a battle against the uneven ground, tangled roots, and thorny vines that snagged their clothes. Lily's breathing was shallow, her face pale, and dark streaks of blood marred her arms and legs. She whispered weakly, "Emily, where do we go now? We're alone, in this endless forest." Emily's jaw tightened. Panic threatened to rise, but she swallowed it, forcing herself to focus. "We survive. That's our first priority," she said firmly, her voice steady even as her heart raced. Supporting Lily with one arm, she guided them through the shadows, scanning every rustle of leaves. Strange animal calls echoed from the depths. Low growls, shrill screeches, but they dared not react loudly. Silence was their shield. Hours passed. The sun, filtered through the thick canopy, cast dappled patterns on the forest floor, confusing their sense of direction. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, but fear and caution drove them forward. Emily noticed faint signs of water, a muddy path, broken twigs hinting at a trail animals might use, but she kept moving cautiously. At one point, Lily stumbled, groaning as pain shot through her leg. Emily steadied her. "You're stronger than you think," she whispered, determination etched into every word. Their bond, forged by trust and necessity, became their lifeline. Alone in the vast wilderness, every choice mattered, and one misstep could mean disaster. Yet, they moved forward, step by step, united by sheer will, aware that the jungle would test them at every turn. After what felt like endless wandering, Emily spotted a small clearing bathed in dappled sunlight. It was far from perfect. Uneven ground, scattered sticks, and hidden roots, but it was safe enough to rest. She gently lowered Lily to the forest floor, checking her injuries. Deep cuts streaked Lily's arms and legs, and bruises marred her skin. Emily's mind raced, thinking of ways to protect her friend from infection and further harm. Quickly, she gathered large leaves, thick branches, and vines. With careful precision, she constructed a rudimentary hut, a simple structure that could shield them from the elements. Every movement was calculated. Her hands trembled with exhaustion, but Emily pushed herself, knowing their survival depended on shelter. She draped leaves over the framework, weaving vines to hold them in place. The hut was far from comfortable, but it was a fortress against the unpredictable jungle. Next, she attended to Lily's wounds. Emily tore strips from a clean cloth she had in her backpack and wrapped them gently around the deepest cuts. She applied pressure to slow the bleeding, murmuring comforting words to keep Lily calm. Every sound, the distant chirp of birds, the rustle of unseen creatures, kept Emily alert. By the time the sun began to dip below the canopy, the shelter stood as a fragile promise of safety. Lily, weak but conscious, leaned against Emily, their hands entwined. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Emily smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute. "We have to rest now. Tomorrow we plan our next move." In that small clearing, amidst the towering jungle, hope took root alongside fear. The morning air was thick and humid, carrying the earthy scent of wet soil and foliage. Emily rose before dawn, careful not to wake Lily, whose body still ached from the crash and injuries. Hunger pressed at her stomach, but survival instincts sharpened her focus. She knew finding food was essential. They couldn't last long on empty stomachs. Moving cautiously, Emily followed faint animal trails, listening for the subtle sounds of the jungle. The rustle of leaves, the distant splash of water, the buzz of insects. Every movement was deliberate. One wrong step could attract dangerous attention. Her eyes scanned the underbrush, searching for anything edible. Blueberries, small and plump, dotted a bush nearby. She tested one cautiously, then offered the same to Lily once she returned. Emily also identified other plants with broad, green leaves. Drawing from her knowledge and instinct, she avoided anything with strange markings or bitter taste. Carefully, she harvested what she could, gathering roots and tender shoots. Each bite brought warmth and a tiny spark of energy back to their bodies. Returning to their makeshift hut, Emily shared the small meal with Lily. They ate slowly, mindful of rationing for the days ahead. "It's not much," Emily said softly, "but it will keep us alive." Lily nodded, her strength slowly returning. As they rested, Emily planned her next venture. Scouting for water, mapping the area, and keeping a vigilant eye on the forest's unseen dangers. In the jungle, every small success, every handful of berries, every sip of water was a triumph. Survival was no longer a distant hope. It was a daily, grueling reality, one that demanded patience, courage, and unwavering resolve. Days blurred into one another as Emily and Lily navigated the relentless jungle. Sunlight barely pierced the thick canopy, and the air was heavy with humidity. Each morning, Emily ventured out to search for food and water while Lily rested, tending to her wounds. Their bodies ached constantly, from insect bites, bruises, and the strain of moving through dense undergrowth. But giving up was not an option. Hunger and fatigue gnawed at them, and the uncertainty of their situation weighed heavily. Emily kept her mind focused, methodically planning each step. Streams provided small amounts of water, and she learned to filter it using leaves and rocks. Berries, edible plants, and occasional small fruits kept their energy just enough to survive. They ate sparingly, rationing each morsel. At night, they huddled together inside their fragile leaf hut, sharing body heat and murmured words of comfort. The jungle at night was alive with strange noises, distant growls, chirps, and the crackling of small fires from unknown creatures. Every sound made them tense, alert, yet they learned to differentiate danger from background noise. Despite the harshness, they adapted. Emily's resourcefulness grew, and Lily's strength returned slowly. They communicated silently at times, a glance or nod replacing words. Each small accomplishment, a successful hunt for berries, a clean stretch of water, reinforcing the hut, brought hope. The jungle tested them physically, mentally, and emotionally, But together, they endured. Their bond deepened, forged in fear, hardship, and resilience. Survival was no longer a plan. It had become a constant, lived experience, pushing them to their limits, yet also proving that they were capable of enduring far more than they ever imagined. The jungle's trials escalated with each passing day. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered swiftly, blotting out the sun. Rain poured in heavy sheets, drumming against the fragile leaf hut and turning the ground into slippery mud. Emily scrambled to reinforce their shelter, weaving extra branches and leaves to keep the water from seeping in. Lily huddled inside, shivering, her wounds stinging from the cold. Every gust of wind and sudden snap of a branch heightened Emily's tension. She could feel the raw power of nature pressing down on them. Another day brought sounds that froze them in place. A low growl echoed from nearby, followed by the rustle of underbrush. Emily signaled Lily to remain silent, their hearts hammering as a large animal moved through the foliage. Fear wrapped around them like a living thing. They stayed perfectly still, holding their breath until the danger passed. The jungle, they realized, was alive with hidden threats. Predators and poisonous creatures waiting in silence. Navigating the terrain was a constant challenge. Thick vines clutched at their legs, jagged roots tore at their feet, and every step demanded caution. Hunger, pain, and fear weighed heavily, yet Emily's determination never wavered. Each obstacle became a lesson. How to find sturdier ground, where to avoid danger, and how to survive another day. Despite exhaustion and uncertainty, they pressed on. Together, they turned fear into vigilance, weakness into resilience. The jungle tested not only their bodies but their courage, forcing them to trust each other completely. Every day was a battle, every night a victory simply for staying alive. After days of surviving the jungle, Emily realized that staying hidden indefinitely was no longer an option. They couldn't rely solely on foraging and shelter. They needed to find a way out, or at least signal for help. She scanned the clearing, searching for anything that could draw attention. Fallen branches, dry leaves, and the small amount of firewood she had collected sparked an idea. "We need to create a signal," Emily said softly, determination in her eyes. Lily, still weak but alert, nodded. Emily began gathering dry leaves and twigs, carefully arranging them in a patch of open ground. She piled the materials high, knowing that a small spark could turn into smoke visible from the sky. While she worked, she explained the plan to Lily, who offered suggestions despite her pain, pointing out areas where the smoke would be more visible. Next, Emily arranged leaves and branches in a large SOS pattern on the ground. Each movement was deliberate, ensuring the letters were clear from above. Her hands trembled with fatigue, but she refused to stop until the symbol was unmistakable. They would have only one chance for a passing aircraft to see it. Finally, Emily struck a small spark to ignite the leaves. Smoke began to curl upward, twisting against the canopy. The scent of burning foliage filled the air, but it was their only hope. Together, they watched the smoke rise, hearts pounding with anxiety and anticipation. This fragile display was more than a signal. It was a lifeline, their plea to the outside world that they were still alive. Hours passed with tense anticipation as Emily and Lily huddled near their smoky signal. Every rustle in the trees made their hearts race, but no aircraft appeared. Just when hope began to waver, a distant hum broke the jungle's oppressive silence. Emily's eyes widened. "Lily, I think someone's coming," she whispered, barely containing her excitement. High above, the silhouette of a helicopter emerged, its blades slicing through the dense canopy. Emily waved frantically, jumping up and down despite her exhaustion. The SOS pattern, coupled with the smoke rising from their fire, had been seen. The helicopter's powerful searchlight swept the clearing, finally locking onto their small, desperate figures. Relief flooded through Emily, and even Lily, pale and weak, managed a faint smile. The rescue team maneuvered the helicopter closer, lowering a rope ladder. Emily supported Lily as they climbed, each step a battle against fatigue and fear, but hope surged with every foot lifted. The jungle, which had seemed endless and threatening, shrank beneath them, replaced by the sight of human presence, of safety. Once aboard, paramedics immediately assessed Lily's injuries, applying professional care. Emily, trembling but relieved, sat close to her friend, gripping her hand. The jungle below faded into a patchwork of greens and shadows as the helicopter carried them toward civilization. Both girls felt a mixture of exhaustion, triumph, and disbelief. They had survived the unimaginable. In those tense, airborne moments, the terror of the jungle gave way to gratitude. The nightmare of isolation, injury, and fear had ended. Yet the experience, raw and transformative, left a permanent mark. They were no longer the same people who had boarded that small plane days ago. They were survivors, stronger, braver, and inseparably bonded. Once safely on the ground, Emily and Lily were immediately rushed to a nearby hospital. The transition from the untamed jungle to the sterile, brightly lit facility was surreal. The sharp scent of antiseptic replaced the earthy, humid air they had endured for days. Medical staff worked swiftly, assessing injuries, cleaning deep cuts, and administering pain relief. Lily was the first to receive attention. Her wounds were serious, with scratches, bruises, and infections beginning to form. Nurses cleaned and bandaged each injury carefully, monitoring her vital signs. Emily stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering words of reassurance. Seeing Lily safe and slowly regaining strength brought Emily immense relief. Emily, though less injured, underwent her own examination. Exhaustion weighed on her as the adrenaline from the jungle adventure finally began to fade. Her body ached from bruises, scratches, and long hours of survival, but she was profoundly grateful. Doctors commended their resilience and noted how their quick thinking had undoubtedly saved their lives. During recovery, the two friends reflected on their ordeal. Each small step, finding food, creating shelter, signaling for help, had been critical. The experience had tested their limits physically and emotionally, yet it had also strengthened their bond beyond measure. They laughed softly at shared memories of fear and improvisation, realizing how they had relied on trust, courage, and resourcefulness to survive. As days passed, strength returned, wounds healed, and the hospital transformed from a place of pain to one of reflection. Emily and Lily emerged not only physically restored but also emotionally fortified, carrying the lessons of the jungle into their future lives. Weeks after their rescue, Emily and Lily found themselves back in familiar surroundings, yet the jungle's memory lingered vividly. The ordeal had left physical scars, faint lines and bruises, but the emotional and mental transformation was even more profound. They had faced fear, pain, and uncertainty together, and each trial had strengthened their bond in ways they never imagined. Sitting in a quiet park, Emily reflected on the journey. "I never thought we could survive out there," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. Lily nodded, a small smile on her face. "We had no choice but to rely on each other," she said, "and somehow we made it." The jungle had been merciless, yet it had revealed their inner resilience. Every challenge, the relentless search for food, the danger from wild animals, the suffocating isolation, had been a test of courage, patience, and determination. The experience also taught them the value of resourcefulness. Emily remembered building their shelter, improvising bandages, and creating signals. Lily thought of the times she had pushed through pain and fear to keep moving. Together, they realized that survival was as much a mental battle as a physical one. Though they would never forget the jungle's threats, they also remembered its lessons. They had survived not by luck alone, but through courage, ingenuity, and unwavering support for each other. Their adventure became more than a story of survival. It became a testament to friendship, resilience, and the human spirit. In facing the wild and living to tell the tale, Emily and Lily emerged stronger, forever changed, and ready to face whatever challenges life might throw their way.